Namaskar. I'm Ashok Vyas. You're watching Viswamjee Voice of Community on ITV Gold. This program comes to you Monday through Thursdays at 8 p.m. and on Sunday we have this special weekly edition at 11 a.m. And in today's Vision of Asia, we'll recap some of the stories we have shared with you already during the week. The overall attention of the whole world still remains on the situation caused by the challenge which was brought to our doorsteps by coronavirus, and this global crisis is touching almost all parts of not just the life but death also. Last week, Indian film industry lost two important film artists who ruled the hearts of cinegoers in their own respective ways. While Irfan Khan was known for his more realistic acting and international star from India, having acted in films like The Namesake, Life of Pi, and many, many more, he was equally acceptable in the commercial cinema also. And then just one day after Irfan, we lost the heartthrob of millions of people during his heydays who started his career with film Bobby, Rishi Kapoor. He was in New York for almost a year, back and forth for treatment of cancer. But at 67, in the middle of all the lockdown, following one day after Irfan Khan, Rishi Kapoor also left his mortal frame. We extend our condolence on behalf of ITV Gold family, on behalf of our chairman, Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh, and indeed on behalf of all the viewers of ITV Gold. Moving towards today's main stories, we will start with message of Sri Viswayogi Viswamjee Maharaj from Guntur Viswamandir. Message with a sense of strength and divine support in overcoming all the challenges. We'll also have Professor Satya Chaitanya talking to us about cosmic will. We will be talking to Dr. Melony Samuels about the campaign against hunger and one interview with Priya, Giri, Desai about India Center Foundation South Asian Art Resilience. Dr. Janish Kothari talks to us about coronavirus-related developments, and we also have this week our weekly special segment, this week with Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh. So all this coming up right after these messages. Stay with us. We begin today's Vision of Asia on an optimistic note with a lot of hopes, as well as a lesson that we need to learn from coronavirus-generated crisis. That came with blessings and good wishes for all the viewers of ITV Gold from Sri Viswayogi Viswamjee Maharaj from Viswamandir, Guntur. Take a look.
I have been warning for the last 25 years. Every year when I happen to visit United States of America. But we neglect now after the eruption of the coronavirus in China, Italy, European countries, America, India, nearly 180 countries, more than 180 countries of the world. It is the most dangerous situation. It is not the war between one country and another country. It is not war between some countries and other countries like world war. It is the war of the declared by the nature upon the human race, whole human race. And this situation is telling us, come on, come on, come on, unite, unite, unite. Don't interfere with the nature. If we interfere with the nature, if nature declares a war, we can't do anything. I told the same thing when I happened to give my discourse, the panel meeting of the UNO General Assembly, when I was doing the Divine March from Seattle to Washington DC, 11 days. In the middle of my journey, I visited United Nations Organization. At the panel meeting, I told them, the panel members, if there is a war between one country and another country, we can settle today, tomorrow, or day after tomorrow. But if nature declares a war, we have to suffer a lot. There is no scope for any solving or repairing or anything. We have to suffer a lot. Be careful, we should not interfere with the nature. So we have to do everything naturally. So we should not do anything against nature. We should worship nature, worship it, nature itself, God. In Lakshmi Ashtotra Namam, here when we are worshipping Lakshmi in India, the first name is Prakrutye Namaha. That is the first name of the Lakshmi, the universal mother, universal power is Prakriti. Prakriti means nature, the whole nature, infinite nature. So we have to worship the nature. We have to love the nature. We have to keep the nature pure. We have to protect the human race. We have to make each and every person healthy. Physical strength, mental strength, financial strength, social strength, and spiritual strength. We have to give these 5 strengths to each and every person, each and every family, each and every country. Keep away all the differences of religion, caste, frontier differences, language differences. Come on, let us unite. Unitedly, we have to face this critical condition and this war declared by nature. I once again tells you, you need not worry about this coronavirus. It will be coming down. We will be safe. We will be happy. Everyone will be happy. All the countries will be happy. It is going away by the divine will, by the grace of the yogis, yogic power. Everything will be fruitful and peaceful. So now think, Christians are not going to churches, Hindus are not going to the temples, Buddhists are not going to Bauddha Aramas, the Sikhs are not going to Gurudwaras, Muslims are not going to mosques. What is this condition? Think about, you're fighting about religion, you're fighting for your nation, you're fighting about your caste, this and that. All these will be there only when the earth is in peaceful condition.
Professor Satya Chaitanya has been a corporate trainer. He has also trained many IAS trainees and worked in the field of management at premier institutes in India. And at the same time, he is a staunch follower of Vedanta, well versed in Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. Professor Satya Chaitanya talked to me from Jamshedpur about cosmic will and about the spirit with which we should embrace the situation and the challenges posed by coronavirus? Take a look.
Hard work, of course. That's something anybody would say. Without that, it's not possible. And put your heart and soul into whatever you're doing, and then accept whatever happens. Don't insist this is how things should be. We don't control everything. So we should also be able to accept things as they happen. I always speak of balancing between making things happen and letting things happen. That balance is very, very important. There are two forces that control everything. In the Mahabharata, there's a beautiful discussion. Yudhishthira goes to Bhishma and asks him, what is more important, Purushartha or human effort or destiny? Purushartha or Deva. And Bhishma gives a beautiful lecture and concludes that lecture with 3 words. He says, Daivam Kliba Upasate. It's eunuchs who bend their knees before destiny. So we can challenge destiny, but remember, destiny is a powerful force. And what happens is a balance between destiny and Purushartha. Our effort plus the karma of samashti, if you want, you can call it cosmic will and things like that. Accept it with the prasad buddhi. That is, this is the Lord's prasada. That's what we have to do, and that's what we must do to retain our sanity in difficult times. If we give in, there is no hope.
Absolutely. And the last question for this session today, Professor Chaitanya ji, any one shloka from Srimad Bhagavad Gita which is dear to you would not be the right question, because I am sure all 700 shlokas would be dear to you, but the one that you may want us to remember and refer repeatedly to stay afloat and not get into a state of depression.
Apart, I mean, there are many verses that I could say, but a half shloka I would like all of us to remember. Krishna consoling Arjuna says, Nahi kalyanakar kaschit durgatim papa gachati. Nahi kalyanakar kaschit durgatim papa tata gachati. One who does good to others is never destroyed. It's Krishna's assurance. That's something I want people to remember in these difficult times, because difficult times take us to the beta state. In the beta state, all of us are completely selfish. We become animals in beta state. Survival becomes the only thing we look for. At such times, the message of doing good to others is absolutely, absolutely important. And the only meaningful way to live life is doing good to others, living for others. No one who has lived exclusively for himself or herself has ever achieved happiness.
We appreciate your continued patronage and support for our sincere and dedicated efforts. And I request you to stay with us. We'll be right back after these short messages. Compassion is, one may say, the ornament for human beings. And that compassionate comes into play in such challenging circumstances even more intensely. Dr. Melony Samuels is spearheading the campaign against hunger, and that is feeding New Yorkers and taking care of needs of many hungry New Yorkers during COVID-19 crisis phase that we all are experiencing and fighting together. Here is Dr. Melony talking to Aditi Lamba.
Thank you so much, Dr. Melony Samuels, for being here with us on ITV Gold. I'm so glad that the Campaign Against Hunger is doing such great works and efforts. How are you doing today, and how's your team doing today?
I'm doing well. Everyone is well, so there's a lot to give God thanks for. We are very busy, super busy, overworked, and somewhat exhausted.
Yes, I can only imagine that. Just starting off this interview, I kind of wanted to reflect upon, just the mission and vision of the Campaign Against Hunger, especially in New York City. But I wanted to see if you could give us some insight into all of the activities that are being done for COVID-19 relief. I think our audience could learn a lot from all the works, your organization is doing. So if you could give us an insight into it, that'd be really great.
Okay, so I think the best way for you to get a full picture of what we've been doing is to give you a little bit about who we are pre-COVID-19. If I can paint just a small picture of what we've been doing in the community for 21 years that we've been here in Brooklyn, the Campaign Against Hunger have been serving on an average on a daily basis 250, 300 individuals, and overall, during the month, we would serve 26 to 30,000 individuals and infusing 3 million meals into the city, 150 zip codes in the city. That's basically who we are when it comes to emergency feeding program. We also have farming initiative. We do a lot of SNAP and taxes and some benefit referrals. So our overall idea is to serve families with dignity, bring them into our super pantry, and give them the opportunity to shop. Now, since COVID-19, our entire organization has changed. We are not who I just said we are, in the sense that where we had our office areas, that has turned into a distribution center. The office itself is now catering food, and when I say catering, maybe that's not the right word. We are packing pre-packed bags to distribute to families online. And so the families online ranges from 5 to 600, 4 to 600. That's what we're seeing. Families are coming. So our staff now, everyone who usually sit at a computer is standing on their feet all day making bags for hundreds of families. That's online.
Wow.
In reference to where we had the super pantry, what is happening there is that no longer is family going in to shop. We have changed where we have online services, which we never had before COVID-19. So families are able to shop online and come over and pick up bags. But that area has turned into a massive distribution center where we're packing for 8,000 families per week. And that means that in the last 4 weeks, actually, we have honestly distributed 1 million meals.
And Dr. Samuel, just discussing the amount of food that has been distributed by the Campaign Against Hunger, I have obviously over 1 million meals that have already been provided, over 127,000 people that have been helped by your nonprofit. What is the end goal right now? How many meals are you looking at providing for the next couple of weeks as we speak right now?
Well, we are anticipating that we will increase that, and we will look at about 10,000 families. With the numbers you have just quoted to me, is that we're looking at a vast increase because the line has not stopped. And I think even after COVID-19, like everything is opened up and we're no longer sheltering in place, what we'll find is that there's a residue of families, and the numbers will be great because during Sandy, when we were there on the ground during Sandy, individuals would have thought that after everyone's opened up and everything is back to work, that it's all over and it's finished, and it wasn't. And so we have to be ready to have enough food, and food is very hard to obtain right now. Funding for food is very hard right now, right as we speak. It's very difficult. And when we do have funding and we are purchasing food, we have to purchase in an enormous amount of food in order to get it because there's such a food shortage right now. And we have to wait for weeks sometimes to get the food that we need. So it's very difficult. It's very challenging. I had a conversation with my staff, and one of the things that they he reiterated to me was that, listen, I've placed order for rice, which is a staple that we cannot get. Very few distributors have rice, or the amount of rice that we need. And the distributor told us 3 weeks. So it's difficult, it's challenging, it's frustrating also. I'll tell you, I cannot hide it. It's frustrating for us. It's heartbroken because families are there. You don't want to turn families back. You never want to turn a family back. And sometimes it becomes very difficult, and we're on the verge of doing that because of what's going on. There is definitely a shortage, and the numbers are growing.
What kind of help then do you need from local and state governments? I know the Brooklyn Borough President has shown support to campaign against hunger. I know we have had the council member around your districts also talk about, providing more food to the ones in need. But what has been the communication with those levels of government, and what do you need from them? And any resources or help already coming from them?
We are very grateful to our board president, all the Alika Samuels, council member Alika Samuels, council member Combo, senators Prasad and Myri, Congressman Jeffries, Assemblywoman Walker, and the number go on. The support, even in Queens, we have Councilmember Richards, we have Senator Saunders, the numbers of support that we are getting. And I'm telling you, this is where a lot of my energy comes from, because they are a phone call away. They open their hearts and they're telling you, okay, let's try this resource. Let's get you with this. Let's get that. So we are getting the support we need. It's just sometimes because of where it's coming from, city can't just write a check.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It takes a little while before you'll actually see money or you'll actually get the resources. But they have been able to give us new partnerships, like Fresh Direct. We have been working with them, and recently we were able to engage them again through the Borough President Office and Alika Samuel's office and all the council members. They got involved, the Speaker of the House, Corey. And I must say, our mayor, the mayor of New York City, has been a strong supporter in helping us getting forward. So I'm excited about that too. It gives me energy when I wake up in the morning, knowing that I am not alone in this. There are partners, there are individuals that know the amazing work the Campaign Against Hunger is doing and say, hey, let's help her. And that's what's keeping us going. Even in this time, actually, we have employed a few people, about 10 individuals have come on board to help us during this COVID-19.
One last question for you, Dr. Samuels. What is your focus for the next 2.5 weeks?
For the next 2.5 weeks?
Yes.
Okay, so for the next 2.5 weeks, my plan is that we're going to go into a larger space so we can keep the social distancing. But not only that, to take the food from off the street. Presently, it's very hard to store food on the street. We're blocking pathway to get that into a safe hub, a larger space where we can do 30, 40 skids of food, which we're able to do about 20 now at one go. We want to double that size. So for the next 2 weeks, if you were to call me and ask me, we are now in a position to hold 60 to 70 skids of food. And we are able now to disperse far more food to everyone that's calling. No one will have to put on a wait list. That's my next goal. That when someone call and say, I have a senior housing that needs 150 or 200 or 300 bags, we say to them, okay, we have you on the list.
Aditi Lama also talked to Priya Giri Desai about India Center Foundation. This foundation is working towards demonstrating South Asian arts resiliency, and the fund dedicated to this cause is gaining momentum. Let us hear.
Priya, if I was to ask you to detail what some of the challenges you've seen amongst these artists, we don't have to go too deep into what is happening, but for our audience to understand how badly some of these artists could be suffering, could you highlight on that, please?
Sure. Well, it really depends on an artist's particular predicament. Some have day jobs because they have to be able to finance their lives. And some, have gone all in. They are screenwriters, they're musicians, they They are filmmakers, you know, they do this for a living and they go gig to gig. You know, this term gig economy is something, you know, we've been hearing more and more with the likes of Uber, but artists have been gig workers forever. You know, they have been taking gig jobs their entire careers. Gig jobs have basically gone away. There's, you know, if you are 100% an artist, 100% of your time, you are no longer finding work in public spaces. You know, you can't be a filmmaker because there's nowhere to show your film publicly. You can't film your film that you might have had in production. If you are a musician who had a 10-city tour lined up for the summer, all those shows have been canceled. All those theaters are shuttered, or all those, you know, all those nightclubs. If you are a visual artist who finally got a gallery to present your work, the gallery shut down and they can't invite anybody to see the work. So the idea of public gathering and, you know, kind of common communal experiencing of art, it's gone. That is the lifeblood of art. You know, art brings us all together, and we physically can't do that right now. And that's why artists are suffering.
Well, I'm really thankful to you for putting that picture up there. I think it could really help inspire some people, you know, to help the fund and to get the word out even more. You know, these artists that are applying to your programs, if there's somebody watching you right now, what kind of programs could they look forward to, some of the benefits that they can look forward to from the India Center Foundation and this fund in the next coming weeks so that they can perhaps, you know, reach out to you? I would like for you to highlight some of that as well.
Sure. Well, round one of the grant has already closed. We actually, you know, we received those 120 applications. So we are now in the process of assessing those applications, and we will give out a first round of grants. We plan to give out a second round of grants, and that application cycle is actually open right now. So between now and its next deadline, which is all on our website, theindiacenter.us/artsfund, artists can apply for these $1,000 grants. It's a fairly simple application, and that is sort of the frontline way that we can start helping artists. The other thing that I think we plan to do once we start giving grants is giving at least a virtual platform to all these artists and their work. You know, we can start, I think one of the huge benefits of contributing to the fund, of being a donor, is that you kind of will get a first look at some new things that are getting made. So if an artist is working on a piece, if a musician is composing something, if a dancer needed, you know, time and space to, you know, maybe make a piece of music that she was choreographing a piece to, we all are going to get a nice first look at those things. And again, this is about, you know, communal experiencing of art as it happens. So that's the kind of exposure that we hope we can give to more South Asian artists in the US.
Priya, what is your focus for the next 2 to 3 weeks, especially with this fund and all of the next process that's going on in it?
Well, it's twofold. I would say, one, I want to see the channel of applications open wide. I want to see applications from all over the country. I want to see applications from all South Asian artists. I want to see all disciplines represented. And so I'm working hard, and the board with me of the India Center, we're working really hard to reach out to community partners to make sure that people in their communities know that we exist. Right. So this is an incredible opportunity. My second goal is to keep raising money for the fund. This fund only works if we all support it. And we can only keep supporting our artists so long as we have the money to keep supporting our artists. And, you know, India Center is a young, new nonprofit. We have big goals, and we're very proud of our big goals, but we actually work best when we have partners. And right now those partners are, you know, it's everybody in the community who can give what they can give. And I think my plea on that, and my the thing that I think about when I think about it, it was funny. My father, who, lived in California my parents lived in California for almost 40 years, avid watchers. And he wanted to send a note to his friends about the fund because, I had created it. And he said, why don't you write something? And the thing that I thought about when I thought about the community that I came from, that I grew up in, the South Asian community that I grew up in, it was that, we all grew up learning music, learning dance. Our children now learn music and learn dance. These grandparents are benefiting from seeing generations and generations benefit from the work of artists in their communities. And the very people who we are trying to support with this fund, who admittedly are much younger members of the South Asian community on the whole, they're going to be the teachers of tomorrow. They're going to be the people that help us keep all this alive tomorrow. And they're also going to be the people who push the envelope, on the cultural conversation about what it means to be South Asian in America. It's their voices who are going to keep us all going as a community. When we think about, it was funny, I was just before you, I was actually folding laundry because that's what you do in COVID. But I was also watching Mindy Kaling's new show on Netflix, which is about a young girl who's lost her father and is trying to make her way in her sophomore year of high school outside of Los Angeles. And the very fact that those actors have a stage in mainstream TV, streaming right now, that story can be told, that she can unapologetically show a scene of a Ganesh puja in the middle of Netflix, and even tell jokes about it. That's a real milestone, and we have to keep those milestones coming. And the only way to do that is to support the next voices, because you don't know who they're going to become. You don't know where they're going to land up with their story. And it really is incumbent on all of us to support that.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck with India Center and this fund. Thank you so much for your time on ITV Gold. One last message to all of our audience and also the lovers of performance arts. I would love for you to reach out to them.
Well, I just want to say that if you want to go back to a world that includes, scoring the tickets to the Zakir Hussain concert, but also, maybe going to your local college and seeing, the Bhangra competition, but also seeing art in your, paper that was done by a South Asian artist who, is telling the story of where she came from. This is the fund for you. This is what you support, because all of their work today will be what we all see tomorrow. And this is planning. This is us setting ourselves up to be represented and for our voices not to be lost.
Dr. Janish Kothari is closely working with COVID patients as well as monitoring various developments related to testing. And he also is one of those Indian American doctors who have had the frontline experience of working with COVID-19 afflicted patients. Here is Dr. Janish talking to us.
Dr. Janish Kothari, thank you so much for being with us on ITV Gold again. It's great to have you here joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you doing? Glad to be back here again. Hopefully we can catch up from where we left off last time.
Definitely. There's so much to follow up today. We'll be addressing a part of this interview in our news segment airing later on tonight. I just wanted to start off this interview sort of looking at the current number of cases that we're having here. We're looking at over 1 million cases in the United States and more than 59,000 deaths. Still a very large number and very alarming. So I just wanted to begin this interview asking you, how do you process these numbers right now? And how should we sort of look at it, when considering the flattening of the curve?
I think that's a great question. And there's probably two ways to look at this one. And on one hand, the number of people that are afflicted and consequently the number of people that have resulted in death is bad. And it's, no matter how you look at it, right? It's sort of what kind of makes us human and all of this, because, all human life is precious. On the other hand, being practical in all of this and kind of understanding that we were going to be affected with this in one way or the other. these numbers are significantly less than what we had initially anticipated. You know, when the preliminary kind of numbers came out early on, like maybe 5-6 weeks ago, the initial projection, at least for the United States, were that we're going to hit somewhere along the 100 to 200,000 death mark. And I mean, we're close to like 60 right now. We don't know where the end is right now, but at this pace, we're sort of a lot less than what we had anticipated. So that's something that's a little bit of a positive.
Is there a decline in number of cases as certain governors of certain states are saying?
I think that there is a flattening of it. There's still the amount of people that are being like coming into the hospital, it's kind of flattened out. I remember initially every day there'd be a significant amount of people coming in, and we would have anywhere from 30 to 40,000 people being tested positive on a daily basis. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're coming into the hospital. So we've kind of seen a decline in that. I wouldn't say that it's been that drastic, but I can definitely say that the amount of people that are being admitted to the hospital has sort of flattened out. We haven't seen that peak that we were seeing earlier on.
Let's talk about the virus itself real quick. Have there been any developments in exactly what's happening to the virus and what is exactly that it's doing to the body? Since we are seeing such a huge increase in number of cases and number of deaths, what are some of the developments that you have found lately?
Okay, that's another really good question. So the knowledge and understanding that we have of this novel virus is changing rapidly, and every day we're learning something new. And it's really hard for like the common person to sort of keep track with this stuff, and it gets a little confusing. And what we do know that this virus causes a respiratory tract illness, and it can range from a common cold to a potentially life-threatening respiratory distress syndrome. The initial reports had compared the virus to influenza, and they said that there's certain similarities. And earlier on in the disease course, we quickly learned that there's not a lot of similarities to this, and in fact, that this virus is far more lethal. The initial projections had said that, not the initial projections, but what we know about the flu is that on an annual basis, it causes mortality in about a little less than 1% of the people that are affected. But it affects a significant amount of people, hundreds of millions. So if you take less than 1% of that, it's still a good amount of people. And this data was presented by the New York Times. And although it's unclear at this time, the death rate from COVID-19 appears to be much higher than that. They looked at some of the evidence from Wuhan, China, and some of the different provinces within China itself. And the death rate at that time ranged anywhere from like 1.5% to as high as 15%. And we haven't really conducted our own studies along those lines, but what we have noticed is that the virus is affecting people based off their location, their ethnicity, age demographic, comorbidities, the length of hospital stay required. There's a recent article that was published by a medical journal called JAMA Network, and they basically gave alarming statistics saying something like those patients that are ventilated, having to have the tube inside of their mouth, there's about 88% mortality in these people. So it's really hard for us to say, hey, anybody that gets this virus, there's a mortality rate of 5%, because there's so many subsets of the patient population that's affected that are responding differently. So it's really hard to put one number on it.
Wow, so this kind of brings me to one of the most important questions that we are nationwide discussing it today, reopening. As you and I are speaking from New York City, which is the epicenter, some states across the country are applying to reopen or are reopening right now as we speak. What's your medical take on the requirements for reopening? And when we're looking at a location like New York City, which is the epicenter where you're also working, is reopening really something that we can consider right now while we are coming towards the month of May?
So the idea of reopening is an interesting topic, and there are people on both sides of this line, and it becomes very difficult to kind of pinpoint which is best. If you talk to a medical personnel, they're going to tell you that, we're not ready yet. If you talk to somebody that's not in the medical profession, who owns a store, who can't, provide money for their family to put food on the table, and they have to pay their rent because they own a shop in New York City, they're going to have a completely different take. And then you look at people from different parts of the country. Somewhere in Idaho or Iowa compared to somebody in Los Angeles, Seattle, and New York who have been afflicted a lot different. And to kind of have these social distancing and quarantine orders across the country, you can't really compare everybody from these different places and treat them similarly. But for me, as a medical perspective and working in New York City, one of the, if not the most afflicted place in the country, I think that the states that are beginning to kind of ease these stay-at-home restrictions, none of them have met the criteria that the government has said, that they need to see a steady decline of 14 consecutive days of people that have been testing positive. And nobody really has met that, you know?
Right.
And I think that we're thinking about this pretty much in the wrong way. Everyone wants to know when we're going to be able to open and leave our homes and, you know, kind of go back to what the world that we knew. But I think the better question is, how will we know when the country is ready to be open, not when? Because any of the dates and stuff that we currently have, they're just kind of being thrown out as guesses. You know, it's being kind of pulled out of thin air. Nobody knows. The virus is still rampant, you know. But I do think there are certain measures that can be taken before we sort of begin to reconsider opening. And one thing,
Go ahead.
but one thing I would say is that the states that decide to open, the hospital must be able to safely treat these patients, you know, because we saw that we kind of weren't able to treat the people that were being affected. And that's when we had all this crisis amongst the personal protective equipment, ventilators, and all that stuff. So states shouldn't open if they haven't rectified those situations. The states have to be able to test everyone who has symptoms. And we have to be able to conduct monitoring of the people that have confirmed cases and the people that they come in contact with. And they have to have a steady decline of consecutive 14 days of people being tested positive.
In this week with Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh, we take a look at the process and the gradual unfolding of activities here as well as in India. We also talked about the critical situation which is likely to emerge in Maharashtra politics. Take a look. Since last week, a lot has happened in terms of the number of COVID-19 affected patients. America has crossed 1 million mark. India is still controlled, yet the number now is 31,000 plus, with 1,008 deaths in India. So overall, how do you see the handling of COVID-19 crisis by India?
Well, I think Prime Minister Modi has done an excellent job by locking down the whole thing on time, on timely manner and very early enough. And that's why the number of deaths and number of fatalities and number of COVID cases or infections are much less as compared to the population of the country.
So there are many factors which come into play, though the country is under the state of lockdown, but then the politics is also working. And of course, the problem, genuine problem of labor, especially those who are working in another state. Now there are going to be some massive efforts that these laborers may commute and go to their respective states. Do you see that is likely to pose some sort of challenge, threat as far as the fight for COVID-19 is concerned?
Yes, it will pose some challenge, but I think all the citizens are equal. So if the poor laborer wants to go back to their home, we should, because they do not have good shelter or good food and work, and so government should make some kind of arrangement to send them home, and then let them decide what they want to do. They want to come back or not after everything is over. But by doing that, government has to have, it's a big task, and the logistic is very complicated. But I think they all deserve to go home as a citizen of India, which is a democratic country.
Absolutely, that goes without saying. But considering the special circumstances, and let's come to America very briefly, and then we'll go back to Maharashtra with a lot of protests which are kind of opposing the lockdown or the state that we are in. There's been a huge number of protests in America, where I think one was in DC also, where they want that everything should start opening up faster than what is being envisaged. How do you see what these people have in their mind? They were blatantly sort of doing things which they are not supposed to be doing.
Well, I mean, that's very deplorable, and that's not good sign, because social distance is a very key to put the brake on this infection spreading. So now this kind of protest, of course, everyone has right to protest. That doesn't mean that they should protest completely illogically. And they should. I mean, government is trying to open up the country in phase wise. And as you can see, the almost 11 states he's opened up in some form, partial or full or whatever. And so that is, but depending upon the particular state, I think every state is different, and they have to kind of respect what is their data, scientific data, what is their scientific situation, and what else they can do in order to open up the economy and country.
Absolutely. Opening up is important. And as we talked about Maharashtra last week, it was a different matter. That issue still continues. But before we talk about the conversation between Chief Minister of Maharashtra and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, here's a moment to pay our tributes to the great actor whom we lost today, Irfan Khan. As you are aware, he acted in several movies. Your memory recollection of any movie that you saw him?
Well, I mean, a lot of good movies I saw where he acted. He was one of the classiest actor in recent history, and his last movie, English Medium, and and also what you call a couple of good movies. One with the tiger, I forgot.
Life of Pi.
Life of Pi. I think he was a great actor, and we really will miss him. And unfortunately, he passed away at very young age of 56 because of the cancer.
Right.
And that is one of those tragedy. But he was really talented person.
A very warm person, very talented person. Doctor, I want to recollect with you as we were talking about him. He acted in a movie Namesake, which was basically the story of NRIs. And
yes, I have seen that movie, and it was excellent.
Yeah,
it was very nicely made. Yeah.
So now going to Maharashtra with a different set of concern with respect to the sustainability of the current Maharashtra government. As you are aware, if Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray is not formally elected or doesn't become a member of the Legislative Council by 28th May, then he cannot continue to function as Chief Minister. And I may also mention here that Governor can nominate 2 seats from his quota. The request is made, but he has not yet decided. What do you think should happen? And the relevant part here is that because of the lockdown, he couldn't face the other election.
Yeah, I mean that is true. I think this kind of, I mean, he is right now Chief Minister, and of course he has to follow the rules and regulation of the Constitution and govern everybody. But right now situation is very unusual. Whether even though we may be in his favor or not in favor politically, but I think he should be given some leeway to figure it out or work it out, whole thing, because right now there are more burning issues are there, which needs real attention rather than this constitutional creating a constitutional crisis here.
So I think you are looking at it in a wholesome manner, which means indirectly you are of the opinion that governor should nominate him in spite of the political differences that they have had. If I am I correct in understanding your point of view that governor should nominate him?
I think so, because not because I like him or I concur with his philosophy or political thinking, but right now we are Maharashtra is number one state which is affected by this COVID-19. We don't know the full picture yet. It may be worse than what we have now once the lockdown is over. So let the government fight this real issue right now at hand, which is more important, which is a question of life and death, then worry about which political party and what happens next. And I think that we can sort it out later on once everything is get over.
So prevention is better than cure, as they say, and in this case, you need a continuous prevention to avoid it from happening. Especially next 1 or 2 years, probably we will be having a different kind of world facing us. And Dr. I also want to share with you, as well as share with our viewers, that World Bank has approved $400 million of money for India to enhance its coastal resources, which is related to, of course, nature. And you have, and we have seen a lot of videos where you see clean Ganga and you see sometimes elephants walking on the street in.
Right.
So talk to me about the way we should relate to nature. One of the lessons from this phase.
Well, I mean, relation with the nature is a very fundamental human relations with anyone. So, and has to be done properly and has to be done very clean way. And that's why the clean rivers and clean park and clean reservoirs and reservations means a jungle has to be there. And the animal has to be get protected, because otherwise and each and every animal has a role to play, and because of the this clean environment or cleanliness with the nature, that ecosystem is really important for the health of the human being. And that's why I'm glad that World Health Organization or World United Nations entity is helping India. It's really commendable, and we congratulate them, and we are thankful to them.
As we conclude today's show, your final words from.
Well, I mean, dear friends, I always believe that this is a challenging time, and therefore we should be very, very vigilant. We should be, but we should be very hopeful and do our best to overcome this crisis. And I'm sure we will, and we will prevail, and our victory will be there, and it will be sooner than later. So wish you all the best, and God bless America, God bless India. Goodbye, see you next week.
And now the time has come for me to say goodbye to you with a reminder to each and every one of us that we should not put our guards down. The challenge that has come our way in the form of coronavirus is still around us. It might be lurking somewhere. If we are not alert, it may lead to a dangerous situation. So social distancing should continue to be a part of our daily lives. We should continue to pay attention to washing our hands frequently. And there is a long way ahead for all of us to work together. On that note, this is Ashok Vyas thanking all of you. But before I go, allow me to remind you to join us on our Facebook page. That is another way of staying in touch Be a friend of ITV Gold's Facebook page. Follow ITV Gold's YouTube channel. Subscribe to this channel, and also keep writing to us at events@itvgold.com. Have a great week ahead. This is Ashok Vyas. Thanks for being with us. Namaste.